Parallel logic, collectivism, comparing National Socialism with Marxism. Introduction. In contemporary discourse, much is said about the comparison of fascism and Marxism, but not much is ever straightened out. Often, the discussion becomes a war of rhetoric, opinion, and propaganda. Narratives are spun and weaved until their mutual resemblances to reality become so tarred and feathered that it is difficult to separate any real argument apart from nonsense. My goal in this slideshow will be to break down the subject matter to be more comprehensible. Here pictured is the originator of fascism, Giovanni Gentili, the all too famous Adolf Hitler, and another image of famous communist leaders. Marxist philosophy. Marxism is based on the idea of the class struggle. This view of history sees human beings as existing in divisions called class. Much of Marxism focuses on the industrial era and later. The development of the industrial working class proletariat is highlighted as being at odds in terms of interest with the ruling class, especially the owners of means of production, which are referred to collectively as the bourgeoisie. Marxism explained the proletariat and bourgeoisie. In the Marxist framing, the proletariat are seen as the protagonist and victimized group, whilst the bourgeoisie are seen as the perpetrators of their subjugation. The bourgeoisie are seen as antagonistic to the proletariat, and called social parasites by proponents of Marxism. During most communist revolutions, much of the bourgeoisie, at least those who fail to escape the clutches are executed en masse in collective punishment. Oftentimes, even the children of these victims are not spared. The, quote, justice is harsh and merciless. Revenge for perceived wrongs is absolute. Participating in the violence completely justified. The formula for the Marxist ideology is as follows. You have Marxist protagonists, aka, then you add to them the Marx pictured as Porky, aka the bourgeoisie. And this will lead to a struggle session, of the bourgeoisie in order to attain equality. And therefore you attain the Marxist conception of justice. The danger, it seems, is that Marxism defines who is and who isn't a victim or perpetrator by class designations. It lacks a firm understanding of economic theory, as it does not seem to be able to understand individual motivation as being beneficial for the collective as a whole, and overestimates the productivity of collectivization, while also underestimating the flexibility of distributed control. Marxism can get into the weeds easily, but it should be noted that basic Marxist philosophy works with the following logic. The proletariat is a victim of oppression by the bourgeoisie. Therefore, justice is done by eliminating the bourgeoisie as a class and distributing their wealth to the victim group, the aforementioned proletariat. Logically, this would look as such. X is oppressed by Y. X eliminates Y. X receives justice, also known as social justice. It is also important to note that from the Marxist point of view, that the proletariat and their supporters are the, quote, good guys. This process of eliminating the bourgeoisie follows directly from Marxist philosophy. Here we have the oppressed worker plus oppressive boss. Therefore, you must eliminate the bosses from the power hierarchy and you achieve utopia. Now we move on to introduction. National Socialism is a political ideology which is based on the idea of a factor in human society. They view ethnic family. The concept of the Volksdeutsche of the German people as an ethnic group, especially in comparison to other Volk in Nazi philosophy, the Volksdeutsche are in their philosophical narrative protagonists. Nazist philosophy, protagonism and antagonism. In this narrative, the Volksdeutsche are viewed as a collective entity, whilst other Volk, including German Jews or Judenvolk, are seen as parasites and antagonistic to the Volksdeutsche. Disclaimer. This is not to say I agree with any Nazi framing. I am merely laying out their framing accurately as they would have seen it from their point of view. We may rightly view their ways and methods as evil or diabolical, but the Nazis would have seen themselves as the good guys, by whatever twisted logic was necessary to soothe their consciences. The Volksdeutsche continued. Although it was not only applied to Jewish people, the Nazi philosophy referred to the Jews and other groups as social parasites upon the German people, and so assumed a state of victimhood, and followed the following logic. The Volksdeutsche are a victim group of the Judenvolk and others. Therefore, the Volksdeutsche should eliminate the Judenvolk and others and extract their wealth for redistribution to the victim group, the Volksdeutsche. Once again, X is victim to Y. X should eliminate Y. X receives justice. This was the material reality of Nazism. The philosophy follows with action that corresponds to the theoretical claims made by Nazist logic. In short, there are formulaic parallels found between Nazism and Marxism. Both purport the idea of a protagonist majority group, which is victim to an antagonist minority group. Both philosophies follow a heroic narrative, which parallels many mythological hero figures in human history. Nothing moves the passions like a story of a victim getting the upper hand against an oppressor, especially an undeserving one. However, both of these philosophies lead to atrocity on a scale rarely seen in human history. In my opinion, it is not coincidence that both of these philosophies follow the same formula. It is because they are elementally the same, only they have applied their archetypal characterizations onto different subjects. It is unsurprising that both have resulted in millions of deaths. And here you see I have a meme and a picture of Gulag and the concentration camps with the sign Arbeit macht frei on it. Conclusion. There exists immaterial rhetoric which attempts in desperation to separate the two ideas. They fail, however, because the logic which compares them is indisputable. The arguments brought forth are equivalent to team sports, red team versus blue team, which are in fact immaterial to the underlying fundamental narrative. The material reality exists regardless of how one wishes to justify it through propaganda or opinion. The only material facts that are necessary to uphold the logic drawn so far are the facts of the Russian Revolution, or any communist revolution, and the facts of the Holocaust, or any other genocide undertaken by the Nazi regime. In order to refute this logic, one would have to deny facts they already accept as true, generally speaking, as some people do deny the Holocaust, and it is at least feasible that some may even deny the facts of the Russian Revolution. From those facts, it follows logically that the two ideologies are equal cloth. Both Marxism and Nazism are based in genocidal resentment. There is no significant material difference between the two, and it should be of great concern that this is in fact highlighted so people will not fall into the rhetorical traps of either persuasion. It is important to avoid the pitfalls of resentment and hate, and remember the humanity within every person. Thanks for watching.